Hello, my name is Pranav Kothari. I work in the large-scale education programs team of educational initiatives. In my role, I routinely meet corporate CSR heads, NGO leaders, in a way to find ways to work together with both of them. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Neelima ji. Thank you for coming. Neelima Khetan has spent over 35 years working both as an NGO leader as well as a grant maker in 2 international companies. In today's conversation, I want to understand what does it take to take an entire team along in a journey from a project executive to the chief executive officer. I'm also curious, as that leader, would you invest in independent third-party evaluation? And if yes, what are some benefits or strategy changes that it can help bring? Thank you so much, and I look forward to having a talk. Welcome. So Neelima ji, could you tell us a little bit about Seva Mandir? Why was the organization set up? What did it aim to do?
So Seva Mandir is little over 50 years old now, and at that time, so it was early years after independence when this organization was formed, and it's interesting because at that time the mood in the country was that Gandhiji had given this call to the Congress to disband and go into villages, but despite that, many people had great expectations from the government. But there were people who were still thinking that the answers will come from also citizen involvement in development. So Seva Mandir's founder also came from that same perspective. So in the late 60s, when he thought of setting up Seva, interestingly, the foundation stone outside Seva Mandir is dated 1931. So the idea was that old. He got to it only in the late 60s, and the I won't say there was a very sophisticated kind of a thinking about what it was. Just let's do something in villages, let's work with communities, let's and at that time this consciousness raising and awareness raising was a big thing. So that's how Seva Mandir started, and it started with adult education, which was, a larger, more than literacy kind of adult education.
So did you think the community would take care of its own development, and was it because they thought that the government was not doing enough?
I think, Pranav, the thinking was that if you look at the nature of the problems, then these problems cannot be solved without the involvement of the citizen. It's not about whether the state is doing enough or not doing enough. So if you look at some of the problems that our democracy was born with, was, let's say, the fragmentation along caste, a hierarchical society that we were, or women's status in society, or even a small thing like, let's say, early marriage. Look at any of these problems will not go away by government taking action. So what can government do? Government can say child marriage is illegal. So fine, but will only making something illegal make the issue go away from society? That won't happen. Child marriages happen because the society feels that it is all right for children to be married, and you make it illegal. And why is it that you still have to do policing? Because people are still continuing to marry children at an earlier age because they don't believe that what the law has said is the right thing.
So Neelima ji, what level did you join Seva Mandir and what level did you leave it?
So of course, Seva Mandir didn't have levels like that. There would be field worker or something. But I came from Pradhan to Seva Mandir, and Pradhan had this project executive, which was the first level. So I carried that tag of project executive into Seva Mandir when I came, and 25 years later I left after having served as chief executive for 12 years.
So project executive says CEO. आपने क्या किया ऐसा to rise to the top?
कुछ नहीं किया. मतलब I had. So also when you, at least in those days when you enter an organization, it was not with the idea of building a career, it was with an idea of doing something.
You said that I did whatever needed to be done? I mean, were there times that you have seen people have issues when certain work is given to them, that they think it's below their level or seniority or experience or dignity to do that?
I'll say Seva Mandir, of course, had a very kind of, still has a participatory kind of a work culture. So it was not as though I was giving an order to somebody to do something, but it's the team would decide together. But in one way, of course, see, there were things that we wanted to do, that needed to be done differently, let's put it like this, because the external environment was changing, people would expect certain things, and so the organization would have to change. And I know at times there would be whoever was the chief executive then felt that maybe this change will be too drastic and maybe you shouldn't do it. And I still remember for me the pleasant surprise was that so I said, okay, let me go and talk to the team that is supposed to bring about this change and what they feel about it. And I had those conversations one-to-one with a lot of people who were old-time Seva Mandir people. And for me, the most pleasant surprise was that in these one-to-one conversations, I felt that most people understood the logic about why that change was needed, and they accepted. So I was so happy that first kind of major change that I was proposing, the team had bought into it. So the chief executive was a bit fearful that this was going to be too radical a change, but the team, since I did the one-to-one conversation, seemed comfortable. So when we came to actually the meeting where it was to be decided, everyone was happy with it.
It reminds me of this quote by Margaret Thatcher, which is, never underestimate what a small group of people can do. It's the
like they're the only ones who,
yeah. That's true. So Seva Mandir में आपने क्या सीखा?
बहुत सीखा. I think the first thing, Pranav, that I still remember, which was like a awakening moment for me, was so I came into this development world thinking that this work means that you have to just forget about your personal life, you have to leave everything, and this is noble work. So it's like you have to Spartan life, don't think about family, don't think about common pleasures of every day, and this is what it's supposed to be. And I think the first thing that Seva Mandir taught me was that you can still be yourself and do this work. So there is no harm in enjoying an ice cream if that's what you like. And you can still be true to the work that you want to do. You can still leave a meeting and go to attend to your child. It's not being disloyal to the cause that you chose your child over that meeting. For me, that was very important, because I think I was coming into this work thinking that tyag is how you have to sacrifice things, and Seva Mandir taught me that normal people, ordinary people with ordinary lives can also do this work.
I've been working in the education sector for the last 7 years, right? And I'm thinking, like, should I change my sector and now work in the health sector? Should I go and work for climate change? Sometimes there's this feeling, okay, now I've done it, I know it all. I'm having the same conversations every day. Or should I follow your path of spending 25 years in a single organization pursuing one singular mission?
Both have their pros and cons, but one advantage and nowadays nobody works for 25 years in one organization, Pranav.
Why is that?
But
and should they be?
Yeah, so I'll come to that guessing a little later, but I'll tell you one big advantage of working for 25 years in one organization that I felt, that in 25 years you kind of see it all. So you see a thing succeed, but then you also will see that at times, so there is a village community, let's say, and you feel that they fought this big battle against, let's say, suppose they were fighting for the commons in that village around the pasture which had been encroached by the powerful landlord in that village. Community put up a fight and they managed to get the pasture. I'm just taking an example which did happen. So you will see the community has come and you will say that, hey, this is a success. But if you stay long enough, then maybe you will then see other kinds of problems that will come in. So the story is not so it's like, watching the movie after the happily ever after marriage, then the real movie begins, that you begin to see the husband and wife have to make it. So the long term teaches you many different kinds of things, and that, love is, I'm just taking that analogy, that love is not just, you fall in love and then everything is good. You fall in love, but then to build a strong relationship, you have to do a lot. It teaches you something very different from what, on the other hand, of course, people, I think, move because, like you said, and I've also in the latter part of my career moved, and I think that's taught me different things. But I certainly feel that if I hadn't stayed in one place for a longer period of time in the beginning, it would not have given me that solid base that it provided me. So.
But how does one know that one isn't getting comfortable and you're kind of used to, all the players, everybody in our industry you can call, and you've developed a reputation and you've gotten into this comfort zone. It's kind of hard to step away from that.
Yeah, you're right, Pranav, that is quite possible. But one thing that I tell my team also, that the longer you stay with, let's say, one program, the only way you will grow is if you keep going deeper and deeper into that program. And over time, you will accumulate insights which are longer term. You will have data to help you develop those insights or challenge those insights or whatever. So it's, the onus is on you. If you want to grow, you can keep going deep. Of course, I'm not saying that you can keep going deep forever. You have to, again, the time when you feel, I also felt at some point in Seva Mandir that I had, come to the end of my learning curve, and I needed to step away to allow the organization to continue to learn and grow. And I guess different people will arrive at it at different time, but there is opportunity to learn while staying in kind of one space also. But the onus is much more on you. When you move to a new environment, then the environment will force you to learn. And you will need to learn without making too much of an effort yourself. But when you stay in a familiar environment, the onus shifts on you if you want the learning to be continuous.
After spending 25 years at Seva Mandir, when you joined the corporate social responsibility team of Coca Cola, what was your first day like? Like what hit you the most? How was that transition for you?
Things which take up so much time in Seva Mandir, for example, a simple leave application that you have to do, or submitting your bills, and they take so, and just because here there are resources and there is technology, it just becomes so simple. So of course that hits you, that so many things that you struggled with seem so simple.
So you were drinking a lot of happiness.
But I think many other things, of course, which in this transition stood out was, I think there's so much we work on the basis of perception. So the not-for-profit sector has perception about the for-profit sector, and in turn, what I realized when I joined the CSR sections of whether Coke or any other company, I think you begin to realize that there are perceptions, equally strong perceptions on the other side about the not-for-profit sector. And that's a very humbling realization that I may think I'm, you're cat's whiskers, but the world doesn't think that. And unfortunate also at times that there is so much of a perception gap between the two realities on both sides, I'm saying. But yeah.
What are some things that are common?
One, people. So I used to always think that, you know, people in the not-for-profit sector are on a pedestal and they are, you know, holy people, good people, concerned people. But when I went into the corporate world, I realized that as many number of as good people that I had met in the not-for-profit side, I met in the for-profit side.
Given the difference in perceptions between corporates and non-profits, is there even an attempt to work together?
Both the market and the non-market players need to know each other better, need to work with each other. Both bring a distinct set of strengths to the table. And therefore, there is a potentially strong multiplier when the two work together. But working together is not simple. It takes time, it takes energy. You have to learn to understand each other. The rhythms are different. Both have to learn to adapt to each other.
You have hundreds of NGOs, applying for a grant. How do you know which organization do you think you'll be able to form a partnership with?
So that's a difficult one for most corporates, and especially now because I think the NGO landscape has also become, there are many different kinds of organizations that are there. And choosing the right partner is always difficult. While there are some agencies that exist who will help you find the right partner, but I've seen most of the people that I know in the CSR space rely a lot on word of mouth when looking for a new partner, because I think people who have worked with somebody before are in a very good position to say whether they can work or not. I'll also say that some of the qualities that help that partnership is if there is openness on both sides, if the NGO is also open, and of course the company also has to be open.
So if someone wants a grant, someone wants a part of the CSR budget that you have to deploy, what is the trick to get your approval?
One thing that organizations need to understand is you have to find an alignment in terms of what is it that the company is wanting to do and what is it that you are doing. In most cases, company CSR tends to be aligned to, in some way or the other, the core business of the company.
So I hear you on the alignment of what the company is doing. So geography makes sense because the company might have factories or locations or offices. The second is the business line. So if I'm a water beverage manufacturer, that is an alignment. What else? What are number 3 and 4?
Number 3 would be the ability of that NGO to show measurable results. Whether we like it or not, even though we may say, and I also say that a lot of change is hard to measure, but companies, and again I'm saying they are not philanthropies. They are accountable for even this CSR money that they spend. In some ways they are accountable to their shareholders. And of course the other thing that companies put a lot of value on is innovation and scale. So if there is a prospective partner that brings a new idea to the table and can show ability to scale, they will be preferred.
When a funder is thinking about getting evaluation, to what extent should they go? Should they be checking the timesheets through biometric attendance? Should they be doing independent verification, surprise checks, audits, engaging? How do you view monitoring and evaluation as a funder? And to what extent do you recommend one going?
So I think both ends of it need to be evaluated, both the input and the output part. And I see there is much more emphasis in measuring the input, but lesser in measuring the output. Again, understandable, because oftentimes it's hard to measure the output or the outcome. But that's, for me, also it has been a learning because when placed in a corporate context, I realized that the only thing that will convince my colleagues, the larger the board or the other senior management, that we were doing something worthwhile is when they are able to see the outcome level results. I've had to think about, as I said, figure out what could be those outcome level results that could be measured within, let's say, 1 year time frame, 2 year time frame. And again, they may not be perfect, but some kind of at least impact you can measure, and you can keep changing it as you go along. So basically what I am saying, Pranav, that emphasis is needed on both. I think a lot of the times more emphasis is placed on measuring the input. For example, like you said, have a biometric in place, have this in place, have that, GPS enabled pictures, but not so much on the outcome. But I think both are essential if you can keep the space for honest conversations, so that your partner feels confident enough to say if something is not working.
It's really difficult to be honest with your donor because you want that grant to come in again next year. You want to keep them happy, right? What is it that a funder should be doing to create that comfort environment where a recipient is able to open up, is able to be vulnerable to the donor?
So one thing, Pranav, the honesty will come through conversations. So if your relation with the recipient, with the partner is only once in 6 months get a report, and then you just judge the report against, okay, this is what you were supposed to deliver and this is what you've done, I don't think you will get much honesty through that. But what I have found effective is if you put in place a system of just meeting and talking about what is happening. Either that is through visiting with the partner in the field and going through what is happening. It's also instructive for oneself, because whatever you will find in the field will never fit completely what you had thought in the office. So you will learn, and also the partner will gather a bit more courage to maybe tell you what is happening.
At Seva Mandir, you were amongst the first few organizations that signed up for an independent third-party randomized control trial. In an era where the way to show impact was through photographs and good narratives and case studies, what inspired you to subject yourself to an independent RCT evaluation? What was going on in your mind, and what happened after that?
So I think must be several factors, but I will mention two, I think, which helped us in this. And this is in 1996 when Abhijit and Michael first came to Seva Mandir. I think one, Seva Mandir had always had a tradition for many years, I had seen, of having an open door policy for interns from all over the world. So we would get young university graduates, college students, and many of these interns would come, and because they would be here for 2 months or a short period of time or 3 months, they would pick up one small thing and then go into the village and go deeper into it. And with all of them, we had this system of what we called a Khula Manch, an open forum. They would come at the end, they would make a presentation and they would ask tough questions, and they will make observations which would be uncomfortable. So a third eye in a sense. So Seva Mandir had that tradition of being questioned, of encouraging that questioning. But the second, I think the more important one, was that Seva Mandir was really blessed in terms of some of its donors that it had, particularly 2 donors, one Dutch, one German, who encouraged us actually to also talk about failures. at a time when most donors only want to know about what has succeeded, and therefore you feel a pressure to only talk about what succeeded. We were really, really blessed to have these donors who gave us the confidence of long-term support, irrespective of the outcomes. And they said, be confident about sharing if something is not working. And I think that led to such a rapid learning phase in Seva Mandir, because we would question and we'll say, this is not working, okay, let's do it differently. So I think because of those circumstances, when Abhijit and Michael came and they said, this is what they would like to do. One, of course, most of us didn't understand what is the meaning of RCT. And so we said, yeah, we are very happy. We were struggling with how to make our decentralized single teacher schools in villages more effective. We were struggling with that. And we had thought that, okay, maybe the answer is, instead of having one teacher, maybe we have two teachers, maybe then it will become a better school. And that's the time when Abhijit and Michael came and they said, hold on, if that's what you want to try, only do this, do it in half the schools and don't do it in the other half. We said, yeah, that's it. So it was kind of being used to this kind of inquiry in a way, having the confidence of our donors. And then when Abhijit and I think we didn't know what it was and we went in, but I think the benefits that accrued to us from that partnership, which continued for 12 long years, was so much that, yeah.
Could you elaborate on some of the benefits of signing up for an independent evaluation?
So a lot of benefits. I think personally for me, Pranav, that was around, I became the chief executive in 99 and this partnership began in 96. And the first program that they had got involved in was the education program, which was floundering. And as a result of their work, see, what they did was they produced data of such high quality that you could not fight with it. Otherwise, we would, it would be anecdotal. So, okay, I went to that center and that center was, not working, and this was, so it was, when I went this happened, when you went this happened. So you are trying to make sense of the elephant based on what you are seeing. But they were able to give us data, good data, rigorously collected data, which you could not fight with. And the first set of data that came out was not flattering at all. It showed us that our program was in deep trouble and we needed to do something about it. So they are not telling us what to do, but they just showed us the mirror and they said, this is what it is. So I was very grateful, and then all of us, worked on how to improve it. And then in that conversation again, JPAL was part of it, and they said, maybe we can try this or try this. And so the second thing that I learned, so one was respect for data and what good data can mean, good data. And the second thing was that I learned from them, which again, you can say it is a story with both sides, and I may have sometime mentioned that to you also. JPAL helped us learn how to make things less complex. So you can't address the whole problem at once, it just is too daunting, but let's pick one part of it. Let's fix this side of it. Can we fix this? And then we'll move to the next.
So what I also feel is that you don't have to wait till steady state of your intervention has before you start measuring. In many ways, an RCT allows you to be on that journey. So if you have multiple hypotheses of what might be steady state, RCT might be a good guiding light as to what data is saying is actually making a difference and isn't. Yeah.
Absolutely, Pranav. And for example, when we realized that we needed to do something in this program, and then let's say we had broken it down into, okay, on the supply side, what is it that we will do, and then we'll worry about the demand side. And of course, the transaction that happens within the school is something that was, but just in terms of on fixing the supply, so many ideas came up. Some of them were crazy, absolutely crazy ideas. But in another way, no idea was crazy, and we said, okay, And JPAL team was as involved in the generation of the ideas, sane and crazy alike, and Seva Mandir team was equally involved. So, so we were on the journey. So RCT was also happening, but the journey to finding a solution was also happening.
I completely relate to this, because when we were doing the RCT evaluation by JPAL for the MindSpark in government schools, for 10 years we had told everyone that you need the child and the device as a 1:1 model, where every child is getting a personalized instruction. But because there was always constraints on how many computers could there be, and Indian class sizes are larger, JPAL came up with this idea of, why don't you pair students to teach? And we were thought, they are crazy, this is outlandish, ये तो हमारा धर्म भ्रष्ट कर रहे हैं, right? But we went with it because there was really no other solution, and in hindsight it turned out that they were no worse off sitting in pairs. And I just look back at that and I'm like, hey, if we didn't have this evaluation, we would have never gotten this idea, because we were so dogmatic about how to approach that.
And which reminds me, I was in this MindSpark school just 2 days ago, and one of the things that the principal said in terms of why this program is working well, he said the children work together. And one of the first things he said, it is so nice that दो बच्चे इकट्ठा बैठते हैं और वो एक दूसरे को समझाते हैं. So I said, without any prompting, that was one of his first things. So.
I always tell my dadi कि एक आप story सुनाइए. So given that, आप एक story सुनाइए impact के बारे में.
Yes, provided मैं not your dadi age, old enough, but so many stories, Pranav. But let me tell you a story from the recent past. So in the last company that I worked in, so we education is one area in which we do a lot of work, spend a lot of money, and the space for education that we chose for ourselves was, of course, early childhood care and education, but also high school education, so from class 9 to class 12. And we wanted children to do well in school and then have higher ambitions, not be content with just thinking that I'll do a BA or I will just become a mason or a fitter, but have more ambitions and also understand the pathways to those ambitions. So we thought we will run the Super 30 kind of IIT coaching program, which is, so I know many people do that, but we also thought, let's do that. For us it was, it will pull up the aspiration level for all the 7,000 children, hopefully. So the first batch that we brought in that first batch we had, our selection was also not perfect and we got a mixed bag of children. One of the girls I remember in that batch, this girl, when she was born, her father left the mother because he said a girl has been born, and so he walked out. So the mother then brought up the girl on her own with support from her brother. So the girl fortunately got picked up and came to this program. But then when she came to this program, she came to this program which would take her to an IIT. But the family was not convinced that the girl has it in her to make it to the IITs. Nobody can say for sure whether a child will get into the IITs. So as the girl was getting older, the pressure from the mother and the family was constant that you have to get married. Pressure was enormous and the girl kept breaking down, and she said that if I don't get into the IIT, I have to get married. There is no other thing. And the girl also felt that I have to listen to my mother because she's brought me up alone. I have no other. And Pranav, she wrote the exam crying and under this enormous pressure and feeling constantly that she can't do it. And this was a batch of 24 children, of which 3 made it to the IIT. One of them was this girl.
Wow.
But the story doesn't end there. So the girl, of course, she's gone to IIT Dhanbad, but the girl comes from a conservative background and from that same village. So we now have the second and the third and the fourth batch that have come in. We are also feeling more confident that now, more children can be brought in. And just about 15 days ago, I was meeting the fourth batch who had just come in. And from one particular area, from where this girl was, her name is, I shouldn't take her name, but anyways, from where this girl is, from that same area, there was one more girl, but there were very few children from that area and very few girls. So this girl stood up and we were just asking introductions, and our CEO asked that, how come there are so few children from that area and why so few girls from that area? And this girl said that no, in our area, in our community, if a girl wants to study, then she's ridiculed and boys will make fun, and so you basically go like this to school and come back from school like this. You don't look right, you don't look left, because why should you be studying? That's not. And we asked that question, that but there is this girl who went to IIT from your village, and she said yes, पूरे समाज ने उसको सम्मानित किया था जब वो गई. So we said समाज ने सम्मानित किया, so now it should become easier. But so why I'm saying the story doesn't end, Pranav, that we had thought that the aspirational will pull the whole system immediately, but I think I'm also realizing that there is a pull this side and there is a pull this side. So you have to keep pulling from this side to counter this insufficient measure. But it's still a good story.
It also sort of reminds us that just one success and then feeling that you've solved the problem wouldn't work.
Absolutely.
So this constant pull, and the fact that change is a lot harder than what the whiteboard design that was done at the time of making and sponsoring that program. Perhaps some of this you just realize once you go back and follow up on an investment that was made 4 or 5 years ago. Indra Nooyi once said that women can't have it all. Agree or disagree?
Don't pitch me against Indra Nooyi. Is I have a lot of respect for her, a huge regard for all that she's achieved. But this statement I don't agree with. I think, Pranav, this premise for life that somebody can have it all is the wrong premise. Nobody has it all. Women don't have it all, men don't have it all, no one has it all. So why kind of the conversation should not be formulated like this, that women can't have it all. I am a woman. I have never for a minute in my life felt, you can say of course that I am a privileged woman because my parents did not put pressure on me to get married. I got decent education. My husband allowed me or was happy for me to have a career of mine. So you can say I'm privileged, and many women are not so privileged. But I'm also saying it is not that it's a one-sided kind of a life, that women always lose out and the men always win. I don't think so. I think both have their own sets of. I know when I say it, there are many people who would say that I'm not sympathetic enough to women, but I don't like the idea of feeling that I'm the bechara in this equation. I'm not the bechara. Nobody is the bechara, and nobody has everything. So it's
fantastic. This was such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom over the past 35 years of career with us. Thank you so much for coming, Neelima. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much, Pranav. Thank you.